What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we are hopping into a 12-team full PPR mock draft for the 2025 fantasy football season. I'll be drafting from the 1.7 overall and going through a draft strategy that I think will help you guys put together an amazing 2025 fantasy football team. We are rolling with one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, two flex spots, and five bench spots for the purpose of today's mock. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. Without further ado, let's not waste any time. Let's hop right in to today's mock. All right, sitting at the 1.7, kind of an awkward place to draft from. Don't exactly know what value is going to be there. You're kind of coming out of the elite tier, like top five-ish players, but you never know what's going to happen, right? We see Malik Neighbors go at the 1.5 today, which I'm actually perfectly okay with, and you're going to absolutely land a stud wide receiver, no matter what in this range. But there's still going to be some running back value potentially. Maybe Gibbs or maybe Bijan falls out. Seeing more drafts for Bijan falls just a little bit against ADP. I think the running backs here, you would definitely prefer a wide receiver over those. So CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, Puka Nacua, and I even think Nico Collins and B-Tom are perfectly okay in this range if that's who you prefer. But I would say from the 1.7, unless Gibbs or Bijan falls for some reason, you're going wide receiver no matter what. So whoever your guy is here, that's okay. Start your draft with a wide receiver. Let's just go with CeeDee Lamb here. Base it on ADP, but I'm perfectly fine with any of those wide receivers. And like I said, even Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins, I think easily those guys could finish as wide receiver 5 or better this year. So I'm okay with them there as well. But we'll go with Lamb, and then this is what you kind of want to look at here. This is a tough spot to draft from. You could kind of come out of the gate and be aggressive at wide receiver and what I call kind of like just an aggro wide receiver build and just load up on studs because I love A.J. Brown here. I love Lad McConkey here, and I think that you could land a very good wide receiver in the third, but I would kind of prefer to keep it a little bit more even peel and go with a running back here because you're going to sacrifice a lot of value at the running back position if you go aggro wide receiver, which I'm okay with, but the running back position is so incredibly inflated based on what happened last year that I just don't know if I would prefer to do that. Depends on how many teams are going to draft this year, how many leagues are going to be in. I'm okay with it, but for the purpose of today's video, we'll go ahead and take a running back here. I'm completely okay with Christian McCaffrey here. I'm completely okay with Josh Jacobs. We'll go with the upside in Christian McCaffrey, but Josh Jacobs was your RB6 last year, had a monster year, 15 touchdowns on the ground. Matt LaFleur really proved that this is a run-first offense. I mean, that second stretch of the season was absolutely ballistic. So I'm okay with Jacobs there. We'll go for some upside, some fun, and C-Mac. And if you want to go with maybe a safer bet, especially based on injury, I'm okay with Jacobs there 110%. But this is what I call a bounce back strategy. I talk about this a lot, especially this early in the offseason, but this is how I have drafted a lot of teams over the past couple years, and you're just putting together a good, solid base, good foundation going into the season. You draft a wide receiver in the first, that means you're going to draft a running back in the second, vice versa. If you drafted a running back in the first, you draft a wide receiver in the second. You just kind of continue that pattern, let a good tight end fall to you, and go late round quarterback. So we'll go with another wide receiver here. If there's like a running back here that's screaming value that you feel like you can't pass up, then you could go running back here and go wide receiver again in the fourth. And I do really like Chase Brown here. I also like Kyron Williams, but we'll go ahead and take a wide receiver off the board. I'll go with Garrett Wilson. I am high on Garrett Wilson. I like Garrett Wilson. I know a lot of people don't, but I'm completely okay with going Garrett Wilson there as my wide receiver too. Like I said, if you think the running back value there outweighs any of the wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, MH, Junior, Rice, Evans, then that's completely fine as well. But now we're going to be back on the board and going running back again. And for me, it's between Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker. I think the Seahawks arguably going to be more productive offense this year. Walker, when healthy last year, definitely not bad whatsoever. Going to be a little bit of a different offense this year for sure. New head coach, all that good stuff. But also really like Alvin Kamara here. But I think the more the knock on Kamara, right, is, he is technically coming off injury, but also what is that offense exactly? going to be? What is a quarterback play going to be like? It's a little tough to read, but what we do know is that Alvin Kamara at least always gets you that PPR value, right? So we'll take Kamara here, but I'm really okay with either of those two running backs there. And we'll just kind of look back to the 5th round here and go wide receiver again. So we have a solid start here. C-Mac, Kamara, Lamb, Wilson, our wide receivers 1 and 2 are done, and our RBs 1 and 2 are also done. So we're going to go back to the wide receiver position here. I really like Xavier Worthy here. I still think Worthy is being quite a bit undervalued, but I just I'm really high on Jameson Williams right now. Gives us some really good upside. I also think that Worthy gives us good upside there. Could pick your poison, maybe like another guy like a Chris Godwin, maybe even a George Pickens there. It doesn't really matter. Just go with the best available wide receiver. Get your first flex play off of the board. Now, this is the point in the draft where I may deviate just a little bit because I personally feel like the wide receiver value, you could argue, outweighs the running back value a little bit, but I do also like Isaiah Pacheco in this range. So if you want to go Pacheco here, I think that's perfectly fine. Maybe like Judkins or Henderson, one of the rookies there. But I think that there's a chance that Tony Pollard or DeAndre Swift last the 7.7. So if you want to go wide receiver, I think that's okay as well. If you're high enough on Ted McMillan, this is definitely the place to draft him, but there are some question marks around guys like Olave, Judy, and Rome Odunze for different reasons, but also there are some guys who really like those players. But you know what? Let's stick to the strat just for the purpose of the mock, and let's go Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, you look at what Pacheco did before the injury last year. He was on a great pace, 15.8 fantasy points in week 1, 16.1 in week 2. And I think that, that offense is going to be much better this year, much more fantasy relevant and fantasy friendly. So I'm okay with Pacheco right there. And kind of glad we went Pacheco because the other running backs that I kind of like in that lower tier in Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift are now off of the board. So now we want to go with the best available wide receiver. And I would kind of consider this next pick really our second flex play because I would prefer to flex a wide receiver over Pacheco there, generally speaking. So Rome Odunze, if that's your guy, go get him here. I'm fine with that. I like Khalil Shakir and I like Jacoby Myers. These are kind of two of my sleeper wide receivers that I really talk about in later rounds of fantasy drafts as of late. So you can really go with whoever you like here. I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers. He's a bona fide wide receiver 1. I know Brock Bowers is there, but Jacoby Myers is one of the most slept on fantasy wide receivers when you look at the past couple of seasons, especially last year. And he's going to be even better this year with Geno Smith as the starting quarterback there. So nonetheless, let's go ahead and look. We're just going to start filling out our bench spots for the most part, but we also need to take a look at tight end and the quarterback position as this draft continues to go on. So I think we're okay at running back for now. And this is kind of what we want, right? Wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. Now this is the point, like, sure, you could go Etienne or Scatabo if you wanted here, but we also want to let a good tight end fall to us. So let's go with Mark Andrews here. If you prefer Evan Ingram there, that's fine. I think it's okay to go David Njoku there, but I also think that there's a strong chance that one of those two tight ends, Ingram or Njoku, may last to the 9.7. And there goes Evan Ingram. I know there's like a lot of knocks on Andrews right now. And like there were trade rumors, but I just don't see it happening. And I know he was relatively touchdown dependent last year, but I mean, 55 catches for 673 receiving yards, still not bad. 12.2 yards per catch, and was a tight end 6 last year. He was hurt in 2023, was still a top 15 tight end. He's been a tight end 6 or better every year since 2019 outside of the season he was hurt. So like I'm okay with Andrews until further notice, right? But I also am okay if you want to go Evan Ingram there. So now looking at things, I still don't think we need to go running back. I would just take the best available wide receiver here. And I'm still in on Jaden Reed at his current ADP. So I'm perfectly fine taking him at the 9.7. I know he was really frustrating last year, but he still got a lot of those double-digit performances, a lot of upside. I know Matthew Golden's there. I get it. But I just think where he's being drafted, he's perfectly fine to go with in terms of like a potential flex play throughout the season. So Tajay Spears is off the board. I do really like Tajay Spears in this range, but if you guys are following the channel, you know that Rachaad White is the running back that I keep smashing the draft button on late in drafts. Beautiful handcuff, first of all, but still Rachaad White was perfectly fine last year, even with the emergence of Bucky Irving. Like we had some of these down weeks for sure, but we still had a lot of double-digit performances. And these were like the games where Bucky Irving was like really going. So it's going to be an offense that's in the red zone a lot, going to put up a lot of points this year. I like Rachaad White in this range as a bench running back for sure. So we're looking pretty solid across the board here. I'm not going to freak out about quarterback. You're going to be able to draft a better quarterback than what you guys see on the board. We'll talk about that in a second. But I am going to go ahead and wrap up the running back position for this squad. And I'm going to reach a little bit here and take J.K. Dobbins. I'm starting to kind of like practice doing so in mock drafts because J.K. Dobbins is not being drafted at this ADP. He is being drafted at a higher ADP, especially when you draft with actual real people. So just be prepared to take J.K. Dobbins against ADP. And I do really like him in that range. So a couple wide receivers that I do like in this range, but we'll go ahead and take a quarterback off the board. Once again, I mean, quarterback is just a mess when I run these mocks. With the computer, like you see teams who drafted Jaden Daniels in the 2nd, they're probably not going to take Drake May in the 10th, Baker Mayfield in the 6th, and JJ McCarthy in the 12th. I mean, basically just have the computer drafting 2 quarterbacks to a lot of teams and pushing up quarterback ADP, which is just not going to happen realistically. But I'm still okay with Justin Fields in the 12th. Plenty of rushing upside. Could always go after a waiver quarterback like Matthew Stafford or Tua, maybe even Michael Penix, Bryce Young, Geno Smith as the season starts to progress. So we're done at the running back position. Let's just take the best available wide receiver off of the board. Can really go with whoever like your late round dart throw guy is. For me, that is Cedric Tillman, who had that little run last year before getting injured where he was like absolutely balling out. I think he's got plenty of upside. So interesting team here, kind of implementing that bounce back strategy. And then really what happens is once that tight end falls to you, you know that you need to draft 2 more wide receivers, 2 more running backs, and get your late round quarterback. That is exactly what we did. So once you deviate from that strategy and you have your tight end, just kind of go best available player at either wide receiver or running back and make sure that you lock up the quarterback position as well. So we look at the final roster here. Justin Fields at quarterback, Mark Andrews at tight end. We got a little Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson stack. Chris McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Isaiah Pacheco, Rachaad White, and J.K. Dobbins at the running back position. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Jacoby Myers, Jaden Reed, and Ced Tillman. So once again, I really like this strategy, especially from like the 1-7, 1-8, 1-9 area, maybe even the 1-6 if one of those top tier running backs doesn't fall to you at that point, because you're just building a really even peel roster across the board. Like, there's nothing like crazy good about this roster necessarily. I still think it's a very good roster, but you're going into the season prepared. You have options on the bench that can fill in terms of the running back positions and the wide receiver positions, but are also viable flex options. Have a solid enough tight end, a solid enough quarterback, good value across the board. So I always feel really good about this strategy when it is implemented correctly. So there you guys have it. There is a PPR 12-team draft from the 1.7 overall and the strategy that I would put together at this point in the off season. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe. And I have draft strategy videos put together from the 1.1 through the 1.6. I will link those down below for you guys, and I'll continue to get these videos pumped out for you guys between June and August. Just kind of getting these updated, doing different draft selections, different size drafts and all that stuff. So you guys have plenty of resources to help you guys dominate the 2025 fantasy season. And of course, guys, we are still running our weekly subscriber mock draft live stream. So make sure you guys are keeping your eyes peeled and popping into those so you guys can draft with the community and get a better look against sharper overall drafters. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.